Hi, I want to thank you guys so much for coming here today and for allowing me to share about my new book, The Positive Worker. For many years, I have worked as a therapist and a coach and helped those that face different emotional issues. I decided to write my new book, The Positive Worker, because I believe many within companies are facing large amounts of obstacles and stress. The book is meant to be a guide to help those in your company grow stronger, more connected, and to figure out how to work at a higher level. I want to share how I got the idea to do this book and many of the lessons that have been learned over many years of coaching both businesses and executives. I want to start in the year 2008. I was working as a therapist, helping many business clients and allowing them to learn how to grow. A very wonderful woman came into my office and she shared that she was having some marital problems. She had told me she wanted to be a teacher, but ended up finding a part-time job at a company called Lehman Brothers. She was working there and really enjoyed both the coworkers she had and the high level of pay she was earning. What started to happen in 2008 was a shock to her as well as everyone else. It began a financial crisis and everything was falling apart within Lehman Brothers. I was nervous for her because this job not only was something she loved, but also provided for her husband and her 2 children. I then watched as she was going to work and facing a huge level of stress. People there had their whole life savings invested in the retirement accounts of Lehman Brothers. She was nervous that people were going to lose their jobs and the company was going to go bankrupt. But despite all of these obstacles, she stayed optimistic. She told me that she didn't care if she lost her job. She was going to be kind, helpful, and be warm to everyone she encountered at her position. This was not the norm at that time. Everyone else was scared and worried and feeling like things were falling apart. But she stayed optimistic and helpful. And then what happened she couldn't control. Lehman Brothers did go bankrupt and the company was closing and everyone would lose their job. Now, a miraculous thing happened to this woman who stayed positive and motivated and continued to keep a good attitude. Some of the assets of Lehman Brothers had value, and they chose to keep a tiny percentage, about 1% of the workforce, to move with those assets over to Barclays. Now, who would they choose in this moment? Would they pick the workers that were complaining, that were angry, that were fighting? Would they be the ones that they would decide to bring to the new position? Definitely not. They chose to have this woman who was staying nice, warm, helpful, and kind, and they brought her to the new company. Now what happened? She ended up making just as much money as she made at Lehman Brothers. She was able to keep her employment and her life stayed positive. So what do we learn from this remarkable woman? Because at the time she impacted me and taught me a great lesson. Even if there is stress, problems, layoffs, or downsizing, it doesn't give you a reason to get angry and negative. When you choose to continue to have a positive attitude, you may end up keeping your job. And I asked her, I said, did you know you would get to keep your position? She said, no. I did it because it was the right thing to do, and I always believe in being helpful. I want to share some lessons that have really impacted my life as a therapist and help businesses learn to grow stronger. There is a feeling in a company that you are all together. Many different personalities and people work within a business, but you all need each other. A woman came to me after a tragic situation. She was married for many years and her husband died suddenly of a heart attack. This was so sad and stressful for her to know that she had become a widow. But even more pressing was that her job provided for her family, and without the income from her husband, she would be struggling to survive and keep her life going. She had to leave work because she was under so much stress from his passing. And during the time she took off, her coworkers came together to do something wonderful. They each made a card and wrote to her and told her how much they appreciated her, how sad they were to see her go, and how they would love her to come back and be back on their team. She got a big box with all their cards, and it made her completely filled with hope and kindness. She chose to go back and begin again at that job. And while she was there, she was struggling to really be able to handle everything. But she said the warmth and love that her coworkers showed her during her hardest time, it gave her the energy to continue and allowed her to stay positive. She ended up going back and working for many years and made it through that very rough situation. Not everybody is able to get along easily with coworkers. I want to share a story of a large company that makes cosmetics. They have a factory where many products like colognes and perfumes and beauty products are made, and they have a group of people that their job is to make sure that everything was done properly. They stamp that everything is appropriate, and they allow it to be sold in stores. A woman came there and got a job working there, and she started to have many problems. Her attitude was very aggressive. She seemed like she knew everything, and she wasn't warm to her coworkers. They would often spend days where they would, during their breaks, go into this room where they would talk and laugh and enjoy each other. And when she was there, she felt very uncomfortable. She would be aggressive and not warm, and the coworkers started to dislike her. And even though she seemed very confident and arrogant, she was very much upset that she no longer was really being liked by those she worked with. She came in for a session, and we started to talk about why she acted this way and what the core reason was that she treated people in this manner. She admitted she had a long history of struggles. When she was a child, her parents were drug addicts, and she was placed in the foster care system. Not having a mom and dad that love you was very hard for her. She bounced around many different parents and foster families and always felt very insecure. And she admitted to me that she opened up that when she was around people, she pretended to be so strong and arrogant because she was insecure. I talked to her about this, and she agreed that this was harming her from both her career and making new relationships. She admitted that she had problems and worked through them. And one of the lessons was to be nice and open and warm. And she went back into that break room, and she apologized and started to be nice and listen and helpful to those that she worked with. And they did take her back and accept her, and she ended up feeling a lot happier and joyful about the job. Now, these are just a few lessons of why staying positive and kind can help you in your career. I want to share a story that illustrates just one other valuable lesson about cleanliness. Now, many times people are in a job and they do just what they're supposed to. This woman I met wanted to work at a greeting card company. For almost all her life, she loved greeting cards and how people would use them for holidays and birthdays and important occasions. And she was excited when they hired her to work at their company. When she got to the place, she walked into her office hoping that it would be nice and filled with light and other people that she could interact with. But she was kind of shocked to see that one of the workers, a man, had been there about 10 years, and his desk was a mess. There were papers everywhere, used soda bottles, and junk all strewn upon his desk. Then there was another worker who'd been there about 5 years, a woman, and her desk was filled with mock greeting cards and paperwork and looked very messy. When I started working with the woman who had just started, she said, "What should I do? When I was raised, I was taught to keep things neat, to be organized, and to respect the space that I work at. And I don't know if I should do that because the other coworkers may feel upset that mine is neat and theirs is not." I told her that she must do what's in her heart and try her hardest, even if everyone does it a different way. So she ended up going and keeping her desk very neat, and some of the coworkers would laugh at her. One time they called her Mrs. Clean because her desk was so neat and organized. The supervisor they had for many years was there and didn't seem to care about the mess. Suddenly he was fired and lost the job, and then something remarkable happened. A new supervisor came in and was very angry with the staff. He said, "How can you keep your office this messy? How can you have a place of work that looks like this?" And ended up saying that everybody was in trouble except for one person. It was the woman that decided to keep her desk neat all the time. Every other worker now had to change and learn to be clean, but not her. She ended up being told she did a great job, and within a few months she was given a raise and promoted. So even if you think being clean is not important, it is, because when you interact with customers or clients, how your space looks is an impact on your business and what it shows other people. And this simple lesson is easy to learn but not followed by everyone. But if you take the steps to stay clean and organized, you make positive change. I next want to share a story about just simple things like the bathroom in your office. What does it feel like to walk into a bathroom and to see a mess or to see things sloppy? If you choose to keep it neat, you clean up after you're done, it leaves the next person to have a space that looks clean and appropriate. So even these little small steps make a big impact both on you and everyone within your company. Now I want to share, when I say the positive worker, what do I mean? Is this someone that walks around happy all the time? This is a worker that does their best in all situations. Even if it's difficult or stressful, they try to be kind to their coworkers, to their supervisors, to their customers, and everyone they impact. I want to share a story about someone I met who made a remarkable amount of change. He came to this country many years ago, not even speaking the language. He was born in Spain, and came here for a better life. He started to work and got a job in a factory making just a few dollars an hour. But he was different than many that came into that job because he worked so hard every single day to be motivated, to be helpful, and to work at his highest level. He not only was able to do well in that job, but he was given a promotion. And he kept working harder and trying to be a better employee. On his downtime in the evenings, he took English courses and learned to be extremely fluent in English. He tried to also be part of the community and join organizations and groups to help other people. Well, his story was very positive and exciting. Within about 10 years, he became a manager of over 100 people in that company. But that wasn't it. As much as he has climbed to a high level, he kept trying hard, being kind to everyone, and working at his highest level. Within a few years, he grew into an even higher level in management, and he had risen in the ranks of the company extremely high, especially for someone that had just come to this country a few years before. Well, the CEO of this large Fortune 1000 company took notice of what he was doing. Many years later, the CEO was about to retire, and he had to pick someone that would lead this company into the next generation. He had many choices of people that had graduated Harvard and Yale and other great colleges, but he felt this man, known for so many years how dedicated and motivated and helpful he was to everyone that came into that company. This man who came here with not a dollar in his pocket ended up becoming the CEO of a Fortune 1000 company. He continued to be kind and helpful, and now he has scholarships he offers to other people from other countries that are looking to better their lives. The lesson from this is that if he could do this with not much of an education and barely speaking the language, what could you do if you started to be helpful, courteous, kind, listening, and supportive to everyone that you encounter? What would it mean if you woke up every day trying to do your best in your career? It would mean that you would move to a higher level of success. I also want to share a great example of how when you get into a slump, when things are starting to look stressful, you have an impact of making a positive change. I was working with a company and a woman who was in a sales executive office. They had about 200 sales reps, and for the last few months things have been slow. Business has been down and not everyone was making their numbers. This one sales rep said, "I want to change this. We are told to make 150 calls every day, but we're not reaching our numbers." She chose on her own to start making 300 calls every day. She doubled her amount of work and she continued to press forward. And what happened? Her extra effort and high level of care led her to become the top sales executive out of those 200 workers. But not only were her numbers better, the people around her started to change. And you were able to be someone that listens, that cares, that learns, and helps those. It makes a major difference. In a company, there are all types of workers, people from different backgrounds, people of different ages, but when you show them kindness, you are able to make a positive change. I want to tell you one very important thing about working. It is not always easy, but when you place your highest level of effort and you go to work every single day with a positive outlook and being kind to everyone, you are impacting not only your own life, but every single person within that organization. How many of us would love to walk into work and see someone smile, see someone ask how we're doing, listen to us, and help us make positive change? Now, I also want to share that sometimes in a job you have to be open to asking questions. I was working with a group of sales executives, and they were training to be in this new position. There were about 10 workers, and on the 5th day of training, one of the workers was feeling very nervous. He was losing the ability to know if he was doing a good job. He started to see that he didn't know how to use the sales system to enter in the data that would allow him to make his contacts and show that he's been making the appropriate calls. He didn't know what to do. It was day 5 of training, and he worried that maybe he would get in trouble for not knowing this. So I said to him, "You should ask and be open about your feelings." He raised his hand in the training class. He said to the teacher, "I don't really know how to use the computer data system properly, and I know that's a big part of the job and being able to work efficiently." The trainer was embarrassed. He said, "I can't believe you don't know that. That should have been one of the main things that was taught." Maybe not everyone caught on to what they were supposed to be doing. So the trainer then asked the rest of the 10 trainees, "Do any of you have an issue with the computer system? If anyone doesn't know it perfectly, raise your hand." Every single person in that group raised their hand. They all admitted that it wasn't just this one person, it was each of them that didn't know how to handle the system. They then learned and they were able to move forward. Sometimes being able to be open and honest saves you face and also improves your company. I was working with another business. Their job is to make reports. When a stock of a company has people that buy the stock, each year they have to give an annual report to all those that have bought the stock. And one error, one typo in that means that they have to completely print all of them over again. There was a new worker starting there, and he didn't know if he should tell them that he found a mistake. He had just started and didn't want to rock the boat. He ended up deciding that he would tell his supervisor and admit that he found a problem. The supervisor opened his eyes and said, "Of course you tell us. Each time we make one error, it costs the company $5,000. So it is important and vital that if anybody on the team catches even a small mistake that you tell us." And I'm sorry that I didn't tell you that clearer, but please know this. So what I say to you is when you have a question, when you're not sure what to do, don't hold it in. Don't pretend you know the answer. Just do the proper thing by asking your supervisor, what is the appropriate question? This might mean not asking your coworker. They may have the wrong information, and if you ask your supervisor and they clearly tell you this is something that is very valuable. And there's all types of rules within each business. This is how to interact with those you work with, deciding if you're allowed to use the cell phone on the job, being able to go on the computer and check personal emails. All of these issues are things you should talk about with your supervisor. Make sure you know for sure. And when you take these small steps and they come together, you become what I call the positive worker. This is someone that places their full effort every day, makes a positive impact in the organization, and help things grow. And I want to finish my talk today with a very personal experience that I went through. I am always trying to be helpful, kind, and optimistic, but that doesn't mean things and problems don't enter into my life. About 2 years ago, my brother was invited to live with me, and he chose not to. He ended up moving to Vermont to work on a team at a ski mountain, working with many other coworkers, trying to help them as they had a ski mountain that they would keep organized. Now, unfortunately, my brother, I didn't know the severity of it, but he had a drug addiction. He had went out with his friends that evening and went to a bar, and he ended up walking home, and he did one needle of heroin, and he died instantly. They found him the next day alone in his apartment. Now, I share that to let you know that in that moment, it's hard to be optimistic. I had one brother, and at 27, he had died. But I chose to not let my problems take over my life. I wrote a book to help other people with mental illness and addiction. I volunteered and did work at rehabs with other people and young men and women that were facing these problems. And then I continued to press on, to continue my work educating companies and making a positive difference in the world. I wrote this new book, The Positive Worker, because I know being in a job is vital for all of us. When we have a position, we want it to be the best we can achieve. And when you take these small steps,